Here we have our nose ding. As you can see, there's a chunk taken out of the nose here. What we're going to do is take out our shattered and delaminated glass and prepare the area around it ready for filling. I'm going to make sure I'm wearing my mask as we've discussed in our safety instructions. I'm going to be using a piece of 80 grit sandpaper and a nice hard block, and I'm just going to clean out all of our broken glass here. I'm now just going to put my board on edge so that I can work the other side of the ding effectively. Now that our nose repair's all sanded and ready for filling, all I'm going to do is use some tape just to dam up the area. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill it from the deck, so I'm just going to tape from the bottom here and wrap my tape around, making sure that my tape is still keeping the shape of my board there as good as possible. It doesn't matter if it goes wider, it does matter if it actually digs into the original shape, because that means we're going to have to come back and fill it again. So I'll just take a small bit of tape and bend it around. Just remembering it's probably easiest to put it on at the rail first. Pretty good tip, that one, and then just fold it over. If you were to put it on the flat area first, then bend it round, you're more inclined to get creases right in the side of your ding there. This is a much easier way to keep your shape in there. So that's now taped up, it's ready to flip over and fill. All I'm going to do is flip it and make sure it's sitting level, so it'll just take me a moment. You can even incline it slightly so it's more directed towards our ding only. It doesn't have to be perfectly level. We can tip it a little bit like that, and it's going to push it into our ding. Now that that's nice and stable, it's ready for us to get our Q-cell and just tip it into our area. Just remembering it's easier to overfill and sand it back than it is to underfill it and then have to come back and refill it again. And that's all filled and it's ready to leave until it goes off. You want to leave it for around about half an hour, then we're ready to sand it. Now that our Q-cell's dry, I'm going to pull my tape off. I'm going to sand it. I'm going to use the same block as I did last time with my 80 grit and a nice hard block. Nice long motions is what we want. We don't want to work on one area at once. It's going to create us dips and hollows. Now that I'm finished sanding, I'm just going to go right over it, making sure that all my angles are correct, looking at it from plenty of different directions just to make sure that the shape is exactly the way it should be. I want my rails to be the same curve as what they were originally, and I also want there to be no high or low points in my actual shape. So take a little bit of time, go right over it. It really pays to do that. And when you're sure that your shape's exactly right, you've got to make sure that you've got the area around it prepared and ready for glassing. We want to prepare a nice large area, at least 2 centimetres around the actual ding area, and then it's ready for glassing. I'm going to glass our nose ding now. I'm going to take my 6-ounce glass. I'm going to use a nice curved shape and cut out nice and large around this area. I'm going to put 2 layers on, my top layer being the smallest, remembering we want the smaller one on top because when we go to sand it, we're going to be sanding into that one and leaving our strength layer, which is our bottom layer, mainly intact. So that the quickest way to cut your glass out is to fold it in half, and you get a nice shape with that too. Cut it in half like that, and then simply just cut a nice curve out of it. Now that's our larger layer. As you can see, it's a lot larger than our actual ding. It's going to sit there like that and then actually wrap around to the other side of our rail. And I'm going to put one more smaller layer on top of that. It's only very small amounts of fiberglass involved in small repairs like this. So that's our 2 layers that we're going to apply there. I'm going to be using resin straight out of our kit. The beauty of our stuff is it's a solar activated resin. It's not going to go off unless it goes into the sun, so you can work with this for hours on end and not have to worry about it going off. I'm going to brush my area with some resin. This is going to mean that my layer is going to stick really easily without it falling off. It can be a hassle otherwise. Put down my first layer. I'm going to wet it out fully before I put my next one on. A nice way to wet out your rails is to use your squeegee, put it behind it and paint over the top. And it also means you keep your fingers nice and clean. Then now that that's all wet, I'm just going to simply push it under with my squeegee and hold it in place with my brush. Make sure that goes right around my rail so there's no air bubbles or lifted sections on the bottom. It means that we're going to have a really strong job. Now our second layer is just going to get put straight on top like that. This one's going to be a little bit harder to wet out because it's so small, so I'm just holding it in place with my squeegee. Again, just putting it behind my glass to wet it all out. Then I'll just push it under. There will be small sections. We'll want to stand up in this with such small amounts of glass. It's not enough to worry about. All you'll need to do is just sand those off when it is filler coated. And then we'll just drain it with our squeegee here. And that's now ready to go out into the sun for 10 minutes. You may need to put this one out for longer because it's more of a double-sided repair. It may take 20 minutes to go off if it's in a less sunny kind of position, but you'll probably be able to get this one to go off just in 10 minutes if you put it with your rail facing directly into the sunlight, as long as it's both sides have got exposure. This is all laminated now, so it's ready for us to filler coat. The idea of us filler coating is to fill the low points in our cloth. Cloth's woven similar to cotton, so what we want to do is fill those low points up and bring them right back up to the level of the top of our cloth, so that when we sand it, we're only sanding into our filler coat and not our fiberglass, which is our actual strength. The way to go about doing this is just with the same resin that we use to actually laminate our board, we're going to filler coat it with just with a brush. It's going to be brushed on. You just brush it on nice and liberally. You don't want to put too much on, but then again you don't want to put too little, so you're going to have a nice even coverage and not that much on there that it's going to run off. Now that our filler coat's all brushed out, what we need to do is take it out into the sun for 10 seconds, bring it back inside for another minute, then pop it out in the sun for another 10 minutes. It's very important that you do this because it activates another part of our resin, which means it's really easy to sand. If you don't, well, you can still sand it, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. Now that this thing's all filler coated, it's ready to be sanded. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it with my nice hard block and a piece of 80 grit paper, and I'm going to fare all my new glass job into my old. This ding's all done and ready to surf now, but if you do, however, want to make it invisible, go to the colour matching section in our DVD. Here we have our nose ding. It's totally finished, it's as strong as it ever was, and it looks just like it always did. You wouldn't even know there'd been a ding there. You ready to go surfing again?